Hi everyone, we're going to go over some basic Photoshop training tools and how to move and navigate in and around in Photoshop. So first thing that we're actually going to do is go ahead and hit File, New. And what this is going to do, or should do, is open up a new prompt window. And it's over on my second screen here. Let me move it over to my other one here. Try again. There we go. We'll move it on over. Okay. The first thing that we want to take into consideration is the width and the height of our document size. Now the width and the height is going to be displayed right here. Okay. And I'm going to guess that most likely when you pull this width and height up, it may be on the last actual creation of what document you made. Okay, it also might pull up, okay, in the units of measurement as picas. Okay, you actually want to switch that over, okay, to inches. Now if you're working on an older version of Photoshop, the way you actually change, okay, your units and increments is going to be up here in Edit, Preferences, and right here in Units and Rulers. Okay, the new Creative Cloud update and everything actually allows you to change the units and increments in the menu itself when you create a new document. If you're working on an older version, you have to do it beforehand. Okay, so let's go back again. We're going to go File, New. Okay, and once again, for some reason, it's coming up on my other screen over here. Let's try this again. There we go. Okay. So we're going to actually change our width and our height, okay, to 17 by 11, okay? This is going to actually be the same size as a spread for assignment 4, okay? So we're actually going to insert Photoshop document, your assignment 3, into assignment 4, okay? And we're going to actually turn it in that way. So we want to make this size for this document the same size as the layouts in InDesign. Okay, now when we go over here to resolution, let's talk about the actual size and what they mean. For the most part, okay, when we work in web and also TV and film, the resolution that we are going to choose for the actual quality, okay, the depth of the amount of pixels within a square inch, okay, is going to be set to 72. Now, when we work in web, TV, and film, we also work in the color mode of RGB. Okay, RGB stands for red, green, and blue. Okay, and when we change this over to the actual color mode of this, okay, RGB doesn't just work for web, TV, and film. We actually work in RGB mode for photos that come out of raw documents. Okay, we'll most likely actually work in another color space, not just the color mode, but the color space of Adobe 98 or ProPhoto. Adobe 98 has a lot more colors, okay, than, let's say, sRGB, which a lot of the time you'll work in sRGB for web, not Adobe 98 or ProPhoto. ProPhoto actually has an insane amount of colors compared to Adobe 98 or sRGB. When it comes to this bit depth, for the most part, most of you will always work in an 8-bit depth. Okay, that's the amount of data that is encoded within that actual color space. You can actually change this over to 16 or 32-bit, okay, depending on the color mode and also depending on the color space, okay. When it comes into printing, okay, like we're going to be designing for assignment 3 and 4, okay, you want to change your resolution right here to 300. The resolution has to do with, once again, the amount of data, okay, the amount of pixels, the amount of quality that's actually in your document itself, okay. And for the most part, we're going to actually print on the quality of 300 DPI or 300 resolution per inch. Okay, we can actually print even more high quality than that, like let's say 600 or 1200 or 1600, depending on the printer. Okay, what we really want to make sure also, okay, maybe we want to do something that's super big. Okay, we're going to do something for a window, maybe a lifestyle presentation photo. We actually may make that resolution 150 DPI because we're actually blowing it up huge, okay, and when you step back from that actual display or from that lifestyle presentation photo, you're actually not going to really notice the difference, okay. But for our document, we're actually going to create this as 300 resolution, okay. Let's go ahead and hit create. Now, the first thing that you want to do, okay, is be able to know what actual unit or ruler space or where the dimensions are that you're working with, okay? In order to do that, we need to turn on our rulers. So we go up here to View, and we go on to Rulers, okay? That will pop up the rulers at the top and also at the bottom of our page, okay? Now, the top and bottom of the page, there's one really cool thing that we can actually do from here. If you click and drag from the rulers, okay, we can actually create a little guide here for you that can actually tell you where things go. Now, the unfortunate thing about Photoshop is that InDesign does is that in InDesign, okay, we can actually set up margins and bleeds, okay, for our printed documents. In Photoshop, we actually have to use a guide in order to do that. We're going to set up our margins, okay, the printable surface area for our document, okay, is going to be 0.25. That means that the printers that we print on within our labs, okay, actually have an area that they can't print to the edge of the paper to. That means that they can't bleed to the edge or print overset on the edge of the paper. So we need to set up some guides here. In order to do that, you can actually drag and drop, okay, but to get more precise, we're going to go up here to View, and we're going to say New Guide. We're going to create a 0.25 bleed, okay, or the actual margin, I mean, okay, for a guide. We're going to go New Guide as well, okay. We need to do the math, okay. We need to minus 0.25 from 17 inches, okay. That gives us 16.75. Okay, let's go View New. And we'll do it on the horizontal basis. Okay, and we're going to do 0.25. And let's do View, New Guide. We're going to do on the horizontal again at 10.75. Okay, these guides now will give us, okay, the margin of where we don't want to put anything. Okay, now if we want to bleed it to the full edge, okay, you may want to change your document size. You may want to change your document size and go over, okay, what the bleed is. So we'd actually change the document size to 17.5, okay, on the width. And then the height would then go to 11.5 to take into the consideration for having a 1/4 inch bleed on every size, okay. So we can actually do that, right? We can go up here to Image, and we can go Canvas Size, and we can actually change the width of the canvas, the document, okay, to 17.5, and we can change it to 11.5. Okay, we can actually create our guides again, okay, New Guide, on the horizontal, 0.25, View, New Guide. On the vertical, let's do 0.25, View, New Guide. And on the vertical, we're going to do 17.25. And we're going to do View, New Guide, 11.25. Oh. We can hit Control-Z for undo. That's a shortcut. Okay, that's a good one to get used to using. Okay, let's do New Guide here. Okay, we actually need to be on the horizontal axis when we do that. We're going to do 11.25. Now, we can actually zoom out on our document by hitting Control-. Okay, we can zoom in on our document, okay, by holding Control+. Okay, this is on PC. Now, these guides, okay, the second ones that we created, okay, that's actually the size of the trim document, okay. So when we design on this, okay, anything over, okay, that extends from this one right here all the way to here, okay, that's actually the bleed. That gets trimmed off, okay, after we print this document, okay. Now what we can actually do, let's go ahead and double click here. Okay, now see how we have these guides? We can change the colors of the guides if we want to, okay, into actually saying this is the size that we want to work within, okay, if we want. So like let's say if we don't like the green, okay, and maybe we wanted, let's go to red. That may be pretty easy to tell what's what. Okay, that is something that we can do to change the colors based on the preferences within Photoshop. Okay, so we have our guides inserted now. Okay, there's a couple things that you probably want to walk through first. Okay, right down here, okay, we have the layers palette. Okay, now the way layers work within Photoshop, okay, it has to do with kind of the thought process of how a book works. Okay, everything on top in a book, okay, meaning the first page, second page, third page, okay, is at the top. Okay, the cover is at the top. You can't see through the top to the bottom of the book. That's kind of the same thought process of layers. If you have a whole bunch of layers in here, okay, let's create a couple layers. Okay, we will come right over here, okay, and let's paint this black, okay, and we are going to paint this layer white, okay, because layer 4 has now been painted all black. We cannot see down into layer 2 unless we turn it off, okay, or we can actually move it, okay, by moving it sideways. Now there's a couple tools and everything here that we just went through real quick that make things easier, okay? When you have a layer, okay, or when you start a new document, this show transform controls may not be selected, okay? So by selecting the show transform controls, it may allow you easily or more easily to see which document or what is being selected on that layer. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is that whenever we want to resize a document, we're on our move tool right now. We actually, whenever we want to resize it based on scale, that means 100% proportional on the X and Y axis, we actually go to hold shift when we resize. So we click on the little toggle here, okay, and we hold shift. Proportionally, if you look up here on the width and the height, it saves it, okay, or it moves it based on the actual percentage and the proportion of being the same. Okay, in order to set our resize, we can just press enter and it will reset the size. Okay, that's kind of easy things around our actual move tool and how the move tool works and how the layers palette, okay, works in somewhat of a chronological order. Okay, we can actually select a whole bunch of layers here, okay, by holding shift and select through. So if we select one and hold shift, it will actually select the whole bunch of layers. Okay, we can also delete all those layers and start from ground zero on the background. Now, if we hit this little eyeball, okay, let's unlock this layer. Okay, it actually comes to this grid. Okay, this grid means that we have a transparent background. We don't have anything there. So anything that gets placed on here, and if we were to save it, especially within a type of file that works with transparencies, like let's say if we wanted to create a logo, which I don't recommend doing in Photoshop, we'd probably want to do that in either Illustrator or InDesign because it would be a better formatted version, okay, for creating a vectored version of a logo, okay. But in this process, okay, this means it's transparent, okay. There's nothing there, okay. So we can actually create the layer, okay, with nothing there. If we were to move it, okay, it shows that there is no background to it, okay. To jump over, okay, from our layers, okay, up into our tool panel, okay, the first thing that we're going to do is jump into this marquee tool. The marquee tool, okay, select and drag, okay, we can create a rectangle. If you hold shift, okay, it does it proportionally. It creates a square. Now, first thing that we're actually going to do, okay, is maybe create a new layer. Now, when we create a new layer over here, okay, it's actually going to come up with just super basic names for them, okay. We can change those, okay. This gets into actually how we name a file and how we name our folders, okay. Production, when we actually name our files and name our folders in actual terms of explaining what they're doing or what they mean or what they see as, okay, or what the image is in it, okay, it actually makes us able to move around in these documents a whole lot easier because we know what things are. Or let's say if we were working in a team of like, let's say 10 people, for say, we would be able to hand a document off to somebody, and they'd actually be able to know what was going on without having to ask the other person or spending lots of time trying to figure things out. So if we were going to set this document up, maybe we have a copy. If we put anything in copy, that's going to be text or overlay, okay? And then maybe we're going to do a, let's bring this outside actually. We're going to do photos. And then maybe we're going to have a photo here. Let's say FPO, for placement only, okay? Those are going to be our comps. Okay, let's actually add that in there too as well. Maybe that'll make more sense, comps. Okay, FPO and comps have to do with if we're going to use other elements of design that are already created, or if we have an idea maybe we found on the web or something, maybe we would put a comp in until we get the actual asset for what we're going to actually be doing. So when we jump in here, okay, we have these 3 photos here, okay, we will, let's start in FPO comps, okay. So we've created a rectangle here. Okay, we have our paint bucket tool. This is actually going to be on the gradient. Okay, you're probably going to have a gradient up here if you're just jumping into Photoshop for the first time. You would want to press Alt, okay, and go ahead and get onto your paint bucket. These little icons right over here, this front one, okay, if you hover over it, okay, it should say set foreground color. Okay, this is the background color. So if we want to set the foreground color of our selection, okay, we'll see, okay, this little icon comes up because we're selected on a folder over here, okay. We're going to actually drag this layer into the folder, okay, and it's actually going to be compressed in there, okay. If we go ahead and minimize this, it says that layer is in there, okay. Let's go ahead, we're going to rename this shapes because we're going to do some shapes, okay. Let's create a black square. Okay, here's a couple more shortcuts on our keyboard we can use. Okay, if we make a selection, okay, and hit Control X, that's cut. It cuts it and takes it away from us. Okay, it's stored in virtual reality right now, and we can actually get it back by hitting Control V. Okay, now Control V will actually place it in the middle of your document. Okay, it's right here, and it's also on a new layer. When we hit Control V, it pasted it onto its own new layer. Okay, so if you cut something and hit Control V, it's probably going to paste it onto its own layer unless you're on a blank layer. Okay, let's go ahead and step back here real quick. We're going to go step back twice. Okay, let's go back one more time. Okay, if we hit Control X and we want to paste it into the same spot, we can hit Edit, Paste Special, and say Paste in Place. And it will paste it in the same spot. Okay, we just zoomed in there real quick, okay, and we're actually moving up right here right now, okay. Now, that layer, okay, has been pasted in the same spot, but it's on its own layer, okay. If we want to combine these 2 layers, check this out, okay. We're going to hit Shift, click, we actually hit Control, okay, hold on. My shortcuts ain't working here. Okay, right click. You can say merge layers. Okay. Now, when we merge those layers right there, once again, it went back to the original document or the original shape that we made. Okay, now when it comes into how we select, okay, or use any sort of marquee, okay, if you hold Alt here, it's going to change through, okay, what the actual marquee is available for you. So like, let's say if we want to create a marquee with a circle, okay, and cut it out, we can. Okay, if you want to create an oval, we can do the same thing. Okay. We'll jump into the lasso tool. The lasso tool, okay, is a freehand tool. We can freehand whatever we want, okay, with the lasso. Okay, so if you need to do precise work, okay, or zoom way in and select something to delete it, okay, or maybe add to a mask or subtract from a mask, we can do that. Okay, now let's go this. So we're going to hit Control Z again, edit, step back, edit, step back. Okay. Let's jump really quick into our history panel here to explain that, okay? History panel, okay, allows us to go way back when we do things, okay? So if you ever delete something on accident and you look down and you go, oh my gosh, something isn't there, okay, go check on your history panel. Okay, see if you can go back and step back, okay, to what you need. Now, if you go and click on something on your history, okay, it's actually going to delete, okay, or step back in regards to all of these. So, like let's say right here on this free transform, okay, that's actually where we maybe screwed something up. If we click on this and start working again, we're going to actually delete all of our other steps. Okay, so make sure if you are going to use your history tool, okay, to actually use it, okay, for the source, and make sure that it's actually something you want to step back to, okay. If this stuff is more important and maybe what you screwed up a long time ago, okay, is something easy to fix, it may just actually be easier just to go fix it and redo it again. Okay, so we have our lasso tool here. Let's go ahead and minimize our history. Okay. Let's go to the polygonal. The polygonal tool, okay, works on straight edges. Okay, now what happens, okay, is that, like, let's say we're going to make a gigantic bunch of selections here, okay, and a bunch of these selections, and once it's made, okay, we can actually hit Control X again, okay, if we want it to go away, Control Z to bring it back. If we're making our polygonal on the selection itself, okay, what happens here is that if we double click, it will go back to the original starting point of our selection within the polygonal. Okay, now within that polygonal, okay, we can actually use what is called the magnetic. Okay, the magnetic tool is going to select, okay, based on the differences, okay, in the color itself, or the histogram, okay, or the levels, depending on whatever the selection is or whatever the layer is, okay? You can actually change the frequency, meaning the depth of what it's trying to select based on the lower frequency, okay, isn't going to select as much. If you go to a higher frequency, it's going to try to select a whole lot more based on the sample of color, okay? We also have two more here. Okay, we have this one right here if you hover over it, okay, what it's going to do, okay, and what it's going to show. I'm going to grab my mouse here real quick so we can hover over here. Or maybe if you right click here, okay, you can also go through and it will tell you what these are called as well, okay. The magic wand tool, okay, also works on this thing called tolerance, okay, and also you have a contiguous check mark here. Okay, contiguous, let's go back here. Let's go ahead and create another box here real quick that isn't touching the other one, but it's on the same layer. This will probably explain the contiguous thought process real quick. Okay, if we have our contiguous off and we want to select, okay, a color that goes all the way, but maybe it's not touching, okay, uncheck the contiguous. If you only wanted to, like, let's say, select this box, okay, on the same layer, the same color, okay, and it isn't touching anything, you would want this contiguous checked, okay. The crop tool, okay, will actually crop down your document, okay, so we don't want to really use that one, okay, very much. Your marquee is how we select things, okay. Your eyedropper, okay, is how you sample a color. Okay, see how it changes down here on our foreground? Okay, you can go to any photo or anything and sample based off of that. Okay, and this will change over here for your foreground. This is your brush tool. Okay, your brush tool, you can make them bigger and smaller by holding down the bracket keys. Okay, and what happens within your brush, let's go ahead and create a new layer. Let's make this one squares. We're going to make this one brushes. Okay. When you paint here, let's turn this layer off, okay? They're still there, we just turned it off, okay? Let's go ahead and grab here a red, okay? We can paint, okay? We can invert it, okay? And we just made it a little bit smaller, okay? Now I'm on a pressure sensitive tablet, okay? That's why tablets, okay, especially the pressure sensitive ones, okay, allow us to get the harder you press, okay, the wider it's going to get. You can configure these however you want, okay. So it's kind of how we get really intricate, or being able to retouch whatever we want, okay. Now if you want to erase, here's the eraser tool, okay. If we wanted to, like, let's say erase this whole entire thing we just made, okay, we can use this eraser tool. Within our brushes, okay, we can change, okay, and add new brushes if we want. There's all kinds of free brushes out there, okay, watercolor and pencil brushes and pen brushes, okay, and you can actually change those based off of here, okay, which is right up here, okay. Let's go to a color here real quick. See, that's 1, that's 2, okay. The smaller you get, it's going to look a little bit more like a pencil. Okay, you can actually come up here. Okay, let's go into the regular brush sizes. Okay, and see this right here, how it feathers off. Okay, we can actually change that as well. That's the hardness. Okay, so this is our paint bucket again. Okay, let's go to a new layer here. We can paint it all red. Okay, we also have our type tool. Our type tool, okay, we're going to click and drag. We actually don't want to do this thing. If we come over to our type tool and just click once, okay, we actually want to create a text frame when we do that. Okay, let's go here, let's erase real quick. Let's go into our text box. We can actually double click here to get back to this original one, okay, and we're just going to put in dummy copy, okay, Lorem Ipsum, okay, actually it's not Lorem Ipsum, okay, it's not placeholder, it's just letters, okay. You can actually hold shift and make your type bigger if you want, okay. You can change the type of the font, okay, the actual typeface up here, okay. These are going to be where you can change your styles if you need to, okay. Most of the time you'll want to leave these on sharp, okay. These have to do with how the actual font is displayed, okay. Here's justification right up here, okay. But for the most part, that at least gives you a basic start on how these work, okay. The last one we'll probably jump into, okay, is smart objects, okay. Now, what I'll probably do is just explain kind of how this works, okay. And smart objects are really going to be used with photos, okay. I actually don't have a photo right now, but we will create what could be a photo, okay. Let's do this. We're going to put in, let's say, magenta. Okay, this would be the same thought process. Maybe if we had an FPO or something for placement only, okay. Just imagine that being a photo, okay. Drag it in from your folder onto here. So you're going to save all your folder or all your files out in a specific folder, okay. And you want to save them in that specific spot, okay, in your folder structure down here, okay. However you save it on your USB or wherever, okay. And when you drag it in from that folder and place it in here, it'll probably, when you drag it in, it's going to be all pixelated and look blurry. Just press enter, okay. It'll actually create a smart object. And when you create the smart object, it's actually going to look like this. Let's do this. Convert to smart object. This little icon right here means that you have a smart object. Okay, when you have a smart object, you actually can't edit that smart object, okay? It is not rasterized, okay? It's actually working off of the file itself if you place a file from outside of Photoshop into Photoshop, okay? And the reason that we do that, if we make it bigger or smaller or whatever we do, okay, it's actually not going to pixelate, okay, based off of the file size. Okay, if we make it smaller and then bigger and smaller and bigger, okay, if it wasn't a smart object, the quality over time would deteriorate, okay? So if we actually have this original file itself, okay, what we want to do, okay, within the smart object is create a mask if we want to take anything out. This is how you're going to cut your models out, okay, for this assignment. Okay, so what you want to do is that you want to select the area, or let's say the runway that you want to get rid of. Okay, if you select the area that you want to get rid of, and down here, okay, is your mask tool. If you hold Alt and click it once, it's going to go away. It's going to create a mask. Okay, this white mask. Okay, now anything that you paint black on this white mask, the inverted, okay, the opposite, okay, it's actually going to go away. Okay, so then that'll go away. Okay, if you need to bring it back, okay, to the original version, you just paint the mask white. Okay, so if you cut something out you don't need, okay, that's a good thing. But if you cut something out you do need and you need to go back, okay, we just paint it black again. That's the best thing about masks. They do not take forever, okay? So that should handle most of the tools in the beginning of the tools in Photoshop, okay?